How do you feel the specific venues that you have chosen for this and the artists have worked? Has it worked in the way you were hoping?
I think it has. I mean, I started the whole festival and the exhibition, in a sense, started with the venues. And that was a really nice way around to work. And I felt like by doing that, it was almost like, and we've been very explicit about the way that the venues have been very foregrounded on the website and in all of the kind of marketing materials. Because I think you can, in a way, you can tell the story of the exhibition or experience it through those buildings and through those venues and through the relationship of those spaces to the city, geographically and physically, but also in terms of the different kind of histories and communities and cultures that have grown up around them and have inhabited them and have been dispersed, etc. I think practically it's really difficult working with 13 off-site venues, and actually a lot of the last year has been spending a lot of time trying to find these spaces. Sometimes they fall through and we've had to find another space, but I've always had a core of the kinds of areas and spaces that we've wanted. And then it's been really, once we found those spaces, thinking about an artist or a work that would somehow respond or inhabit or occupy that space in a really specific way. And that's been, yeah, I think that's largely been successful. As I say, I mean, I've walked around, I'm seeing it for the first time in a way, but it really feels like there's a kind of coherence between the work and the way that those works occupy those spaces and the spaces themselves and their different kind of histories.
So it's kind of a mixture of the monumental and the semi-destroyed and the kind of regenerated, yeah, isn't it?
Definitely. So we've got old industrial spaces, works, metalworks, cutlery mesters. We have a space that was where stainless steel was invented and first manufactured. But we've also got, some of those spaces became really important spaces in terms of music and music culture. So it was really important to me that we had a club space. So we've used the lead mill, that's been in the space that we've been able to bring in. We've got a nightclub called Dina. And then there are art spaces again that are occupying often post-industrial buildings, but now, with S1 being up in Park Hill Flats, these kind of extraordinary brutalist flats, again, the use is changing, different kinds of desires and different ideas of what we want now are being projected onto these places, and they accommodate them, and they shift and they absorb them again. But it felt really important that we had a very definite kind of sort of cluster, but also kind of dispersal of these spaces across the city and the kind of character and what they represent and evoke, I guess.
Mark Fell's work obviously is very embedded in the city and his knowledge of the city. So there's a lot of personal content in there. But I mean, what was your gauge of success? It isn't all about something that resonates with Sheffield very specifically. There are some international artists here who've brought quite, not generic, but very kind of universal works. What were you trying to achieve with those?
I mean, when I was first putting the text together, I mean, I was talking about these very specific, very like themes and ideas that were very much about this place, and I wanted the festival to really occupy this place in a way that felt, relevant and appropriate, and also said something about this place. But I think as much as it's about this place, it has to have a kind of universal resonance as well. And I think that in the way that we've brought artists in, as you say, it's not all British artists, there are international artists, and there are works that have been shown elsewhere. It was about also trying to talk about these experiences and these ideas as being something very fundamental. And in a way, the whole idea of, up, down, top, bottom, strange and charm, the title of the exhibition, like referring back to the kind of the material reality of matter, of the world. This was a way in which it was sort of trying to think about how things can be, that things can also be reduced to a very fundamental, a very basic and primitive level, but even within that, there's extraordinary complexity. And so, I guess, again, the exhibition, it's difficult to talk about because there's not one theme. And where it speaks to the past and it speaks to Sheffield's past, it's also speaking to Sheffield's present, but not just Sheffield's present. Sheffield is a microcosm, and not a microcosm, but what's happening here is happening in cities and places all over the UK and all over the world. But I think that, when we're talking about what happened in the 80s through that scratch video work and, foreign policy then and the kind of economic culture and the kind of political culture around what was happening then, then you have someone like Hannah Sawtell or Beatrice Gibson who's very much addressing what that means now. And so as much as it's about the specific, it's about the universal, and as much as it's about the past, it's about the present, actually.
And what sort of impact are you hoping it will have on the people of Sheffield?
Well, the other thing is, you know, it's kind of an event, it's a festival, it's 3 weeks, and a lot of people I hope will come and visit, and people who don't know Sheffield will be just, you know, they'll be taken through the city in quite a rich and kind of illuminating way, I think, just by, you know, moving between these different venues. But I also, you know, it's all video, film, sound. The works are durational. You know, you can spend 10, 15, 20 minutes with some of the works, but, you know, with Scratch Video or Michel Auder, you could spend 2 hours in those shows. So I was also aware of these different kind of temporalities, and it's a festival for this city and the people who live here as well. And what I hope is that you can experience it in a day, as many people will. But if you're here over the 3 weeks, there's a way in which some of those exhibitions and some of those works you can return to or give a lot more time to. And so I hope that actually, yeah, there's a kind of different speed for people who live here, and it opens up spaces that are very familiar or that you would normally walk past, and allows people access into their city and into some of that thinking in another way as well.
And nice that some people will come across the works by accident.
Yeah,
quite
exactly,
possibly.
Exactly.
Has it given you an appetite for more site-specific sound installations?
In a way, I think it's been an amazing
It's a cruel time to ask you that, just as it opens.
On the opening day, I'm thrilled with the show. The works look amazing. People are here, and it feels fantastic. It's interesting for me to work like this because nearly all of my curatorial work has been in institutions and in buildings. And I said earlier that it felt a bit like a kind of group show that had been exploded across the city. And actually, I think that's because that's a way that I'm very comfortable in working. And I wanted it to have a sense that, you know, it wasn't just about trying to represent lots of positions or trying to be very inclusive. You know, some biennales and festival models, that's really important. But actually, one of the nice things about Art Sheffield, you know, it has its own particular scale, but it means that actually I could be very specific and I could be very focused in the kind of work and the kind of ideas that I wanted to bring in. And so, so yeah, no, that's influenced the way that I've approached it, definitely.
And can I ask you which works you think are most successful? Or is that cruel? Like, which is your favourite child?
To be honest, I think they're all successful on their own terms. And I know that sounds like a way of avoiding your question, but I think that the way that we're in this incredible substation building, the way that Steve's work has responded to this and occupied that space, and, you know, just materially, intellectually, like everything about the way that he's kind of encountered and kind of occupied this building. It's not an easy building to occupy and to bring something into, and what he's done I think is incredibly appropriate. But I think that's only a kind of slightly larger scale model for how all of the artists, all of the works have happened. And I think if the festival's successful, it's successful because the works really do feel, I wanted them to feel like they belonged in those spaces somehow, like they'd always been there, or they could, that, you know, they're going to go away again, but that kind of memory of them being there somehow. That there was a really, yeah, that there was a real relationship between the space and the work, and I really feel like, I hope that's been successful for all of the works.
And when you were given this wonderful project, was there any talk of legacy? Is there a real concern about legacy, or is it more just about creating the most interesting, dynamic, engaging kind of festival as possible and then just see what happens?
I mean, for the consortium, I mean, this is the 5th edition. Yeah. So this is...
They know what they're doing.
For a while. And, you know, it's not a biennial because it hasn't been every 2 years, but it's been every 2 or every 3 years. And so there's already a legacy to Art Sheffield, I think. And I think in terms of, for me, it was about trying to give this city and the consortium the best I could do in terms of curatorially, and to really, you know, I really wanted to do something, as I say, for them, but also for myself, that felt like it was really meaningful in terms of this place. And so I hope the legacy will be that actually buildings and artists who have been here and the projects that we've done will open up some of these spaces, but also some of these ideas to the people who live here and who are working here. But I'm sure, you know, if you ask the consortium, I'm sure they have a very good answer on legacy. And I'm sure, I know it's important because cities like this, I think, are going to become increasingly important in terms of sites of the production of art. You know, it's increasingly difficult for art and artists to be kind of centralised around London at the moment, and I think that cities like Sheffield offer real alternatives for people to come and build communities, and that's been happening here for many, many years, particularly in music as well. But I think that, yeah, going forward, projects like this demonstrate the possibility around that.
Yeah, definitely.